Hi everyone, I'm Sona Tatsians. I'm an estate planning attorney and I help families protect their loved ones, their families, and their assets. And today I want to talk to you about how to fund a trust and what that means. So funding a trust means putting assets in the name of your family trust. Many of you may already have done an estate plan, have your own estate planning documents, and many times people think once I sign it, notarize it, it's all done. I don't have to touch it again. But actually that's not the case. So the most important thing is not only to create the trust, but make sure that the assets are properly handled and put in the name of the trust. I often like to describe a trust as a basket. It's a basket that would hold all your assets in it. So once you create your basket, you want to make sure it's not an empty basket and everything that you have is either there or properly names the trust, your basket, as a beneficiary. So what are some of the assets that people fund and put into the trust? One of the most important ones is your home. And what that means is you need to create a new deed that goes from you as an individual, or you and your husband or your spouse as an individual, to you as the trustees of the trust. What that entails is preparing a quitclaim deed, having it notarized, filing it with the county recorder's office, and then you want to make sure the property does not get reassessed, meaning property taxes don't go up. So as a result, you also want to file something with the assessor's office. Typically, if you work with an attorney, the attorney would prepare all this paperwork for you. So again, one of the most important things to put into a trust is your home. Now, what else can you put into a trust? What if you have, for example, retirement accounts? Do you put your 401k or your IRA into a trust? Actually, you don't, because those are tax deferred accounts. Hi, Annette. Nice to see you. Those are tax deferred accounts. Every time you put money into your 401k or your IRA, that's pre-tax money. You don't pay income taxes on it. So as a result, all the funds that grow in there grow tax-free. And if you were to put your IRA into your basket, into your trust, all the taxes you deferred would immediately be due because they would consider that change of ownership. So when we're funding the trust, we don't necessarily want to put everything in there, but we can name the trust as a beneficiary. If you are married, it's always a good idea to name your spouse as the primary beneficiary. So let's say I have an IRA. I want to name my husband as the primary beneficiary of my IRA. What that means, if I was to pass away, he can take the funds, put it in his name, and now he will be the owner of the IRA and he can continue to defer taxes. That's only available to a surviving spouse, not available to any other beneficiary. But second beneficiary, because I have minor children, I don't want the kids to get the funds in their name right now, I would name my trust as a beneficiary. So if something was to happen to both me and my spouse, the funds would be funneled into the trust, and through the trust, the kids would be the beneficiaries of the IRA. So another thing that we want to make sure that we're properly designating is the beneficiaries on your IRA or 401 accounts. And again, you need to make a differentiation whether you're married or not, so you determine whether the first or the second beneficiary would be the trust. Okay, let's see what Annette is asking. If I'm married, should I put my personal accounts and assets in the joint trust? Example, does my personal inheritance have to be in the joint trust with my spouse? That's actually a really good question, Annette. If you get an inheritance, typically you want to keep things separate and may not necessarily want to put it into a joint trust with the spouse, but definitely you want to put your personal accounts and assets in the trust. And let me actually get to that. So the next thing we'll talk about is how do you get a bank account or a savings account in the name of the trust? You typically will go online, or you could go into the bank and you tell them, I created a trust and I want to make sure the assets are in the name of the trust. There's two ways really to do this. You can leave the account, so let's say you have a checking account. You can leave the account outside of the trust and name the trust as a beneficiary. What that means is the account is in your name. If only after your passing you can name the trust as a beneficiary. So it's a POD, pay on death, or TOD, transfer on death beneficiary would be the trust. So after the passing would go into the trust. Or you can directly put the account in the name of the trust. That would be transferring the title on it. So when you start getting your monthly statements, instead of it being in your individual name, it would be in your name as a trustee. So Annette, when you start getting your monthly monthly accounts from the bank, it would say Annette as trustee of Annette's Trust. That's how it will be distinguished, and that's how you know the personal account, checking account, and savings account are in the name of the trust. Another very important asset that most younger families have is life insurance. And how do we deal with life insurance? How do we put life insurance in the name of the trust? So typically what you would do is the life insurance would be owned by the individual, and you would name, again, primary or contingent beneficiaries as the trust. If you're married, I always like to put the first beneficiary as the spouse. It's much easier to have an individual be paid life insurance proceeds than a trust, because when there's a trust involved, you need to send the trust to the legal department. They need to take a look at it. They need to figure out who the beneficiaries are. This could actually delay the process of your spouse getting the life insurance proceeds. So as a result, I like to recommend naming the spouse, if you have one, as the primary beneficiary, and for the contingent beneficiary, if you're thinking of naming your children, instead you want to name your trust. So again, you have minor children, something happens to you, the funds, the life insurance lives outside of the trust, something happens to you, the funds would be funneled into the trust, and the kids could be beneficiaries of the life insurance through the trust. And instead of getting the funds in their name right now, the funds could be invested and then given to them based on the milestones that you put in the trust. For example, give some funds at 20, 25, upon college graduation, whatever milestones you put in there, that's how the kids can inherit their assets. Now, another common asset that people have is a 529 account. That's a college saving account. So how do we put a 529 account into the trust? Now, the 529 account, when a parent or a grandparent opens the account, they will be the custodian or the owner of the account. So you want to see if you can name the trust as the second owner of the account. The funds will not be in the trust, but they can name the second owner, the trust as the second owner. So if something happens to the parent or the grandparent who started the 529 account, you could have the trust be the secondary owner, and it's for the benefit of your children. Your children are ultimate beneficiaries of the 529 college account. Another asset that we commonly have is a business, whether it's a corporation or an LLC or a sole proprietorship. There are different ways of dealing with each particular business. The most important thing is whether if it's an LLC, we can do an assignment of the LLC shares, or if it's a corporation, we can issue new stock certificate to show that the business is now in the name of the trust, and there will be specific language written in the trust to accept the business, the corporation, into it. Whatever assets you have, the most important thing is not only to create your basket, which is your trust, but to put everything either in the name of the basket or properly name the basket, the trust, as a beneficiary. Because you want to make sure if something was to happen to you, your spouse, you want to make sure your kids are properly going to get their funds through the trust. Or again, avoiding going through probate, avoiding having courts make decisions as to how the kids will get their assets, and it will be distributed according to the provisions that you thought out and how they will get their money through the trust. If you have any questions about this, feel free to leave me a message on the bottom, and I will go ahead and answer your questions, or feel free to shoot me an email at info@linklaw.com, and I will talk to you next week. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.